Hello guys over there again, welcome back to this next lesson on the Spring Boot playlist. This is a particular video which is about a step-by-step guide on how to create a new Spring Boot project, and it also gives you it explains some of the common project structure, the folder structure, and the files which you will normally see in your Spring Boot application. And it also gives you some explanation of some of the common annotations that you can see in the Spring Boot application. So it also explains how you can simply run your Spring Boot application and how you can send a request by sending a request in your client in your browser, so that you can see the result of your Spring Boot application. So without wasting time, in the previous lessons we covered from lesson 1 to lesson 4, where in lesson 1 we introduced the concept of Spring Boot. In lesson 2 we looked at the Spring Boot architecture. In lesson 3 we explained the project that we are going to build along this playlist, and we said we are going to build a simple learning management system. And then in lesson 4 we looked on how to install all the tools that are required, including the MySQL, the Postman, the intelliJ, installing the Spring Boot, and all the other tools which are required. So if you have not watched these previous videos, you can always go and check out, so that you can be able to reconnect to this other video, and then you wait for more content from the subsequent lessons. So guys, without much of wasting time, if you are looking for a Spring Boot framework for REST APIs, then this is the right playlist to follow along from lesson 1 to the last lesson, which is arranged in that prerequisite order. So without wasting time, let us go to our IDE, so that we can be able to demonstrate how we can create a simple Spring Boot project, and then we explain some of the folder structure and the file structure, and then we explain some of the annotations, and then demonstrate how we can simply run the application, and how we can simply send the HTTP request and get the response back. Alright, so without wasting time, for you to create a new Spring Boot project, what you need to do is simply go to this file tab and click on new project, and then you're going to select whether you're going to create a new project from scratch, or you have some project from some existing source code, or you have some project from the version control system, for example Git or GitLab. And then for our case, we are going to create a new project from scratch. So I'm going to click on new project, and then it gives you this folder where you're going to specify some of the project information, for example the project name, the location of the project, and other necessary information. So here we are going to specify the artifact name or the project name. So we are going to call it the Code Archive Learning Management System, Code Archive LMS. And then here we are going to specify the project location. For me, I'm going to leave it at this location. You can change the location by clicking on this and then select the folder where you want your project folder to be stored. All right. And then for that, I'm going to leave it for that desktop, so that we can be able to find our project on our desktop. And then I'm also going to select the language, which is, so we are going to use Java. If you have not, if you don't have the basics of Java, I would advise you go. We have a playlist on Java fundamentals, so that you can understand the fundamental concepts of Java. Java is the language which we are going to use with the Spring Boot framework. And then we are going to select the build system, whether Gradle, or we are going to use Maven or Groovy. For our case, we are going to use Maven. And then in the subsequent lessons, we will also demonstrate in one of the projects how we can be able to use Gradle management system, and how the two are different. And then the group name will be this. This is the group name of our project. And then the artifact ID, which is the same as the project name, which we have specified here. And then we have the package name. Package name is where our project is going to be, all our files and folders are going to be stored. So the package name is the group name plus the artifact name, which is combined here in lowercase. And then the JDK, for me, I'm using this JDK version 18, and the Java I'm using is 17. You can specify either you are using Java 8 or Java 11 or Java Old, but I would advise not to use 8. And then maybe you can use 11 or 17. And then the packaging, we are using jar. There's also an option for using war, but this is somehow outdated, so we are going to use jar for packaging. In the next subsequent lesson, I think that is on lesson 11, when we will demonstrate how to package our application. We will learn more about what a jar is. So when we are packaging our application for deployment, then we are going to generate a jar file which we can be able to deploy on a server. Alright, so then the next step, you click on next, and then you're going to get this interface where you're going to add the project dependency. So dependencies are the some of the code which has been written already, and it might be you need it to reuse. You don't have to write from scratch. For example, if you need to configure the database configuration for your application, then we have the dependency for database that you need. If you want XML, or you want Oracle, or you want any database, you can add this the respective dependency. If you want to add some security to your application, we have the security dependencies here. And then if you want to add some template engines, we have some dependencies here. So for our case now, we are just going to build a very simple basic Spring Boot application, which will just return a simple request when we send a response. So we need a web dependency, because this dependency is what is going to configure and tell our application that this application should be a web application which is capable of receiving the requests and then sending the response back to the client. So we need a web dependency. So we are going to add this dependency called the Spring Web. And then the version of Spring Boot we are using is Spring Boot. So what will happen is that when we click on create, then the Spring Boot is going to download this Spring Web, which is corresponding with this version 3, and then we are going to have our project created. So when we click on create next, then we are going to specify whether we are going to open this project in this current window or a new window. So I like to open my projects in the new window, and after clicking here, then it will take some time to resolve the dependencies, and then it is going to resolve and identify all the dependencies that we have specified, and then after that it is going to download all those dependencies from the Maven repository, and then after downloading it is going to initialize the project, and then after that create the project for us. Alright, so you can see it is resolving the dependencies, and then after that it should download, and then it will configure and create the project. So as it is importing the Maven project, already we have our project is well set up. So you can see there is this file here called help.md. This is just a file which has got some information if you need some help or you need to refer some documentation. So we are going to close this. And then here you can see we have this folder called Code Archive Learning Management System, LMS, and then under it we have this some other subfolders. And then here we have this very important folder here called the main folder. The main, I mean the SRC, the folder, that's the source folder. So this is this folder where our source code is going to be stored and located. So in this folder we have this folder called the main, and then under this we have the folder called the Java. And if we look at this package of ours, this is the package. You can see there is a class called Code Archive Learning Management System. And then in this other folder called resource, we have these other subfolders, the static, the templates, and then we have this file which is called the application.properties. Alright, this is the file where we are going to use later to add some of the project properties and project configuration. For example, if you want to specify the port number for your project, if you want to specify the database configuration where your application should connect to which database, and if you also want to configure some other properties, for example security properties and any other properties that is required by our application. So here we are going to use this file, and there's another format of another file called the .yml file. We will also look into that. This is another key file which you can use to configure the properties instead of using the .properties file. And then you look into this, we have this file called pom.xml. This is the file which contains all our dependencies that we've added. So for our case right now, we only have this one dependency which has been added, and it is the web. We have specified that we only need the web dependency for now. Later in the subsequent lesson, when we configure database and the security, we will add the relevant dependencies here. So we will come here and specify all the dependencies that is required by our application. So this is the file where we can specify the dependency that is required by our application. So you can see here it is using this format to get the dependency. So here in the parent tag, you can see we have this group ID, the Spring Framework.boot, and then the parent, and then the version is this. So when you specify any dependency here, and then what will happen is that this Maven is going to download the dependency of here of this version. So for example, this dependency web, this is the web version 3.10. So it is going to use the parent version to download all the dependencies into your XML. So in the future, we will still explain more on this pom.xml file to have an understanding of how to configure it. Alright guys, so after explaining this project structure, let us click on run for you to run this project and see how it will compile. So we are simply going to click on this icon, run the project, and then it should compile the project, and then after some time we are going to get the output and the result on the screen. So as it is configuring, as we continue with this project, you will come to learn more of these files, but the key ones is what we have explained. So in the subsequent lesson, we will still look into the more concepts. All right, so our project is running here, and it is taking some time to complete, and here you can see the project is now running and it has completed. It has started in 5 seconds, and here you can see that it is running. It starts with the Spring Boot version. We were using version 3. This is the Spring Boot logo, and then it tells us that here it has started Tomcat server on port 8080. This is because we said when we were introducing Spring Boot, we said Spring Boot is a framework. It is a very nice framework which comes with some embedded server so that it can be able to provide us with an environment where we can test our application without having to deploy it. So this Tomcat server, when we added this dependency web, then Spring knows that this is going to be a web, and it is going to add this dependency so that when we run the application is started and then it is deployed on this server. And this server is running on our local machine right now, and it is running on a specific port 8080. So later we will look on how we can change the port if we want to change the port from 8080 to something else. Now that our Spring Boot is up and running, let us go to our browser and then we send a request to our server and see how it responds. So we are going to type HTTP because we are going to send the HTTP request in our browser, and then we are going to type localhost because our application now is running on localhost and the port number is 8080. So when we click on that, then we are going to see the result of our application. So when you click on that, it gives you this result. It tells you a white label error page. This is because our application is now okay. It is running well. There is no problem with that. The error you are seeing here is because this request has been sent to this application, but there is no specific endpoint which is going to be mapped to. So because of that, it sends us that there is nothing, there is no any resource that we are going to find, and we don't find any resource. So it sends us an error code of 404, which means not found. There is no any endpoint or API that we are going to map to. All right, so you can see that is a simple step on how to create a simple Spring Boot project. And in the next video, which is on lesson 6, we will now start implementing our first controller, so that we can create our first API, so that when we send a request here, we are able to get the particular the correct response in our page here, so that we don't get this white label error. So in the next lesson, we are going now to create a symbol controller class, and in that controller we create one API, and then when we call that API in our client, whether Postman or the browser, we should be able to see the request and not the white label error. All right, so otherwise guys, I hope this video is useful to you, and I hope you find the content very useful, and see you in the next video.